Have you guys ever wondered what Arnold would look like as a baby?
Whoa!
Oh my God. You know when there's like a cool big anime guy who looks over his shoulder and you're like, oh man, I don't want to get punched by him. I've never seen that in live action until today.
Also, Chronicles of Narnia has one of the most advanced CG characters ever made, and maybe it even holds up today, 20 years later.
What's up guys, welcome to Visual Effects Artists React. Have you guys heard of Yu Hakusho?
No.
No.
That's like the brutalest American pronunciation.
Is it?
Yu Hakusho. I'm really excited to share it because it kind of blew me away. I was like, I didn't know this was possible. Context, guy gets superpowers, battles bad guys.
We'll start with a warm-up, shall we?
Hey, it's Neo.
Pretty cool, right?
His glasses are crooked.
What if I told you he gets cooler?
Whoa.
Yo, he just got buff. I can see it through his suit.
You may not like it, but this is what peak performance looks like. Hey, I gotta give a shout out to like the guy with the piece of cardboard that like blows the wind at the guy's hair. Like as little as the wind touches, perfect. This is pretty sick.
Yeah.
This is what I want from action movies.
Briefly turns into Neo from the Burly Brawl.
Oh, heck yeah. Sword Ninja guy comes out and saves him just like Han Solo.
So this part, this action scene gets sweet, now that there's like multiple fighters.
They're doing a really good job of like selling the hits. Everybody goes flying on wires every time.
How much of that is like a prosthetic suit? He looks CG some of the time.
Man, it's like they're dropping in a CG double for this dude once in a while and we just can't tell. Like that's gotta be a real shot, dude wearing makeup and everything. But like these shots, who knows? It feels like it's real. It's a CG body with I think a face replacement when he bulks up. You can feel like the low resolution nature of like CG clothing. I think I saw the transition just happen actually. They did a match cut from a real guy with a real costume to a CG coat. And yeah, you can feel the wrinkles just become a little less detailed.
It gets smooth, it gets very smooth.
Oh, yeah. I would have expected the transition to happen during the first like boof, but it actually smoothly transitions right before that.
It's funny, this is like 20 years after the Burly Brawl scene, but there's this problem when you're doing black fabric. It's the inconsistency of the fuzz on the clothing or something like that. The way it catches the light, that's usually the thing that's the tell that it's CGI. It gets too uncanny smooth.
Like you can look at his shoulder, all the little tiny wrinkles there that are like shallow and you have the fuzz bits on top of that.
And then they disappear.
They just kind of disappear.
Now they're gone. And to be fair, it's basically a perfect match as far as the lighting and texturing goes.
Which is insane, by the way. To do it in front of your eyes, perfect color matching and light matching like that and material matching. And then they just kept his face as his body turned CG and grew up. They just kept his real face there.
Do you think that's a suit that he's wearing there and he's normally just kind of skinny?
Looks like he's wearing a prosthetic on his neck and his chest and his hand. And then a bunch of foam underneath.
So that's the thing, I was looking through the BTS of this. There's lots of practical close-ups of him in a suit, but he's actually wearing like a blue collar. And I think it's because instead of giving him a prosthetic neck, they're doing a CGI neck. But the face and the shoulders and like the arms are still real, but basically the neck and I think the hands are CGI in this shot. Do you see how much meatier his hand is now?
Yeah.
That could be a glove there, but if it's curled up in a fist, that's an entirely different mold you would have to make because you can't take a like foam latex hand and curl it up like that and everything wrinkled correctly.
You'd see the latex wrinkles. You
Yeah.
know?
So doing this wouldn't stress it out too much. But if you see him go like this in a shot, then it's probably all CG hands.
Yeah.
He's wearing those goddamn big hands over his hands. I don't know what that is. What is that? I don't know what it is.
You don't really see people apply high-end visual effects to make people like bulk up very often. Even in like the original Captain America, they did the opposite. He was already bulked up.
They're like, it's easier to physically bulk him up than it is to digitally bulk him up. It's easier to digitally make him skinny.
It would make sense just to simply have one of the tallest people you can get to basically hop in for stand-in shots or like those kind of stunt moments in a wide shot where you need a lot of interaction. What we're seeing as CGI here isn't necessarily the rendering quality. It's just the moments where the animation feels unreal. Because I think there's way more CGI in this than we're giving it credit for.
One of the key technologies that we're developing is in the field of volumetric capture.
So I'm seeing something really cool here. They're lighting the actor with a volume around them that has the set or the scene on it so they get the correct lighting on the face. And they're doing volumetric capture of the performance, it looks like, to have a full quality 3D scan of the actor's head, which would explain how they can do all these crazy shots of the guy acting and emoting while he's on this big costume. Because, yeah, they're just getting really high quality facial motion capture. But that makes sense. You get a really great like face cap. You can keep your clothing from the scene on set if you want and just do a face replacement. You can do a whole body replacement. But having that like real life filmed face is really like freeing because you can do you can pretty much put it wherever you want.
Normally when you see face replacements, it's done with a bunch of dots on a face and they have a camera that's tracking all of that. Well, that ends up getting transposed onto a 3D model that is animated. At the end of the day, it's a rendering of a modeled thing rather than
like stretched and squished.
Yeah. Whereas what they're doing here is actually basically doing a full volumetric capture.
Yeah, it's like a photo scan happening at the rate of a camera capturing motion. It's very effective at getting close-up like shots, hero shots, if you will, of the face and having it not feel CGI.
This is so much more advanced than I was expecting it to be. This is really cool though.
I love seeing Japanese animation sensibilities put into live-action filmmaking.
Now this is a cool fight scene and all, but I think there's a very clear reason why this guy ends up losing, and it's because he wasn't wearing today's sponsor, Vessi. Look at that, he's taking a spirit blast right to his raw little piggies, and you're wondering why it turns to dust. Put your shoes on. I can imagine the fight would have gone a lot better if he dipped his skin hooves into the new Vessi Pacific sneaker. These shoes are as adorable as our two little fighters over here, while also being waterproof and weatherproof. Not to mention, they're just comfy and stylish. And hey, if you want to double your comfort, Vessi also sells socks. So if you're going to be fighting to the death in an anime-style battle, or you just want a new pair of shoes, you can get them at vessi.com/corridorcrew for 15% off your first pair. That's 15% off for 100% of 2 shoes. Now back to React.
All right, so since we're talking about volumetric capture of an actor's face, why don't we jump back to like one of the earliest forms of real-time performance capture?
Oh wow, dude, you're just digging up the crustiest, dustiest old stuff. Well, I love this. I love this.
Sim Graphics introduced.
Oh, dang.
That looks like Mario 64.
Yeah, so this is like the early days. They have Charles Martinet from Nintendo doing Mario's voice in real time, like as a big publicity stunt.
Wait, what the heck is going on right now?
Do they have stuff attached to his mouth?
Yeah, when you said face tracking, they literally have a helmet that has like things that when you move your mouth, goes like bzz, 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 mechanically on the helmet, and it measures how you move.
Wait. So there's things taped or glued to his lips and mouth?
And his chins.
And his chin?
And his chins?
His chins and his chin.
Wait.
Yeah.
Wow. What the heck?
So he's physically moving servos with his face in order to drive a digital puppet of a face.
Yes.
What the heck, dude?
Yeah, when they talk about like trying to get out of the way of the performance, this is what they're talking about. There's a part of this where like they can even use this technology to make sick kids feel better. It's like a kid in a hospital bed.
Thank you. What do you think?
That was good.
The actors are also controlling other things with like buttons and switches.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're more puppeting it with their face rather than doing like performance capture. They also have like actual puppeting tools they're using to like move things around and probably do things like blink the eyes or do a trick like having the head spin.
How far we've come.
And in some ways,
yeah,
we're still right back where we started, aren't we?
Yeah.
I will say sometimes I wish it was mechanical based on how janky the video capture can be.
Speaking of like face performance and swapping faces, I got a clip to show you here that's gonna make you want to burn it with fire. Have you guys ever seen the movie Junior?
Starring Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito.
I thought Twins was Danny DeVito.
It is.
Wait, is Danny DeVito in this one too?
Yes.
There's 2 Danny DeVito, Arnold Schwarzenegger matchups?
Yeah, this is the movie where Arnold becomes pregnant.
Man, the 90s are wild for films.
So in this movie, Arnold is pregnant and he's having a baby, and this is his dream sequence where he gets to meet his baby.
Oh Oh man.
Oh boy.
Whoa! Dude, Arnold Schwarzenegger already has this kind of scrunchy face, and seeing it extra scrunched is very strange.
Oh my god.
This feels like they had somebody just invent this on the spot and write the program, and they just went for it. Arnold here is not moving his head, and they're trying to match the lighting, and they're like, all right, Arnold, say mama, say papa. And he's going goo goo gaga, and then he's like, all right, I trust you guys to take care of me.
So a couple things. First off, this is a nightmare sequence. It's supposed to be disturbing. That alone gives you so much leeway to dive into the uncanny valley. You know, it's supposed to make you feel weird. I find this actually really interesting because this is a super early example of essentially a deep fake because they're using real footage that's tracked onto the baby's face. Notice how the face is warped. They actually liquefied his eyes and mouth to be more scrunched to fit the proportions of a baby's face, which is not the same proportions of an adult's face, especially a hyper-masculine face like Arnold. Rumor has it that they played this scene in front of test audiences and they universally were like, ugh, no. So they actually went back and they sort of they put more effort into blending the face in, and they added diffusion over it to kind of soften it. I'm trying to imagine what it would have looked like before this, and I'm picturing just a more crispy version of Arnold's face staring into my soul going, Arr!
Dude, that's the governor of California right there. Former governor.
But I just find it really interesting. They kept his hair. That's all just kind of tracked in there on the baby's head. Notice they're also very carefully not moving the angle of the baby's face, so the face is always in one locked direction, and they're matching that with Arnold's face.
It almost looks like they filmed his face outside with the sunlight on it. His hair has a blue edge that feels like sky blue.
I think it's a blue screen though.
I mean, it could be.
Yeah, it's just I see this reflection of studio lighting in his eyes.
I could see back then a visual effects supervisor effectively having to figure out the tools that they'd have to invent to actually make this. And if you think about it, it's not that crazy. It's filming Arnold, it's cutting him out, scrunching it, and then tracking and parenting that whole thing to just a basic XY translation plus some rotation.
But then also color balancing it to match the color of the baby's face so that when you fade out from Arnold's face to the baby's chin there, it's as smooth of a line as possible. Also, those are baby ears, not his real ears. So it's not just a full face, it's just the hair and the face.
You can also see the artifact of having to digitize film and not having that workflow completely figured out, where the highlights get kind of weird, on the baby's shirt. It kind of become this weird muted blue.
It's just kind of interesting because this is a very early example of a face swap using an actual plate of footage.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's Junior. I think they did a pretty decent job at pulling it off.
I agree, they did, and it's visually striking.
Yeah.
It's a pretty
and
cool
it makes
effect.
you feel things.
It does.
Not good things, but it makes you feel things.
Right.
Hey, we haven't actually asked you to subscribe to this YouTube channel in a while, so if you enjoy what you've been watching, consider subscribing. It would actually be really helpful, so thank you. Did you guys see the Chronicles of Narnia, Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe? Came out 20 years ago, 2005.
Yeah, this was right after Lord of the Rings did their big thing, and some studios we need more. Open up that wardrobe.
There's lots of cool stuff going on in this movie, but you're right, it came right after Lord of the Rings, and so they've got these big battlefield sequences that are kind of underwhelming, but the one thing that stuck out to me about this movie was the lion, the god Aslan, who was there when the deep magic was written.
Welcome, Susan and Lucy, daughters of Eve. And welcome to you, Beavers. You have my thanks.
Now, I want you guys just to study this lion here and consider the fact that this came out 20 years ago.
Sir, he's a brother.
I know, dear one. But that only makes the betrayal all the worse.
No, this is very good. This is definitely everybody coming together to solve a very challenging engineering problem. All that hair, different hair length, the way it clusters and needs to be groomed.
The way it casts a shadow on the boy.
Yeah.
The boy.
The performance of the lion is actually really good too. I would argue it's more compelling than the modern Lion King remake. The rendering quality is better than newer Lion Kings, but the way they did the face animation of Aslan here is like way more emotionally resonant for me.
It was very important for them to be able to actually nail the facial animation of the lion. You know, a lion's not gonna have that sort of facial articulation that humans do, but how do you translate that onto a lion? And they've got the muscle structures all in there, and that's driving the skin on top of it, but they realized the key to making it work was actually getting the skin to fold up and wrinkle, and that's what actually transfers through the fur.
I was just gonna say, because the mane, like you can't really see the skin underneath, but you can see the hairs move around as he's moving his shoulders, because the hairs are attached to his shoulders and they're just sticking up like another 8 inches.
So they spent like 2 years trying to get Aslan to work. And when this came out, this was essentially like pretty much the peak of what a digital character could be. And guess the company that was responsible for doing this lion?
I'm gonna guess it's Rhythm and Hues.
You'd guess correctly.
He went on to do the tiger from Life of Pi and then folded, unfortunately.
Like the wrinkles of his nose.
Yeah.
And they considered doing some mocap of a lion on a mocap stage, but like they realized they wouldn't be able to direct that action at all, and so they're like, we just have to hand animate everything. And so once they get all that kind of set, then it goes off to the technical animation where they're doing all the simulations of the hair and the muscles and the skin and all that stuff. They realized that lion hair is extremely coarse, like paintbrush bristles that are really coarse and thick. And so they knew that they had to sort of nail not only just like the thickness of the hair and like the lighting of the hair, but the clumpiness of it. And also they had a real lion that they were matching it to as best as they could, while still trying to give him emotional sort of outlets here. Aslan in the first movie had 5.2 million hairs on his body, and every frame took 10 hours to render. So they had to use a lot of computers to render this movie.
Oh my God.
That's one of those things that's crazy, because like you'll sit there and be like, all right, we got 6 months until release. We do have to render out, 3,000 frames. Okay, let's get started. I'm like, wait a minute, what's 10 times 3,000 divided by 24? It's like, uh-oh.
That's 41 months. Oh my God.
Well, yeah.
And that's if you're using one computer.
If your one PC is rendering. And that's why it takes so long for Ian Hubert to release stuff.
He's only got 2 computers. But this is the first movie. They have 2 more movies that Aslan is in, and those were done by a different visual effects company. And I want to see your guys' interpretation of how they did Aslan in the second movie, Prince Caspian.
Things never happen the same way twice, dear one.
Ooh, what the heck?
That feels like a downgrade in the render quality. I kind of like the first one better. Just off of gut instinct here. I can see like more detail in the fur, but like the global illumination, that ambient light that bounces in, just feels a little weirdly flat.
Here's the thing though, this is what I kind of was realizing. The direction here was more of a fantasy character. They wanted a fantastical lion, as opposed to the direction for the first movie, which is like, let's make this look like the most realistic lion we could get. I think it comes down to the smoothness of the fur on the face. There's less detail on the face specifically. The rest of the lion honestly looks just as good, in my opinion.
Like, this is what jumps out to me immediately, and this is like a rendering struggle I dealt with a lot back in that time era. If you look at him here, you can see dark shadows in his fur, right? You can see almost pure black values in there. You can see it in his eyes, you can see it in the wrinkles, you can see it in like the nooks right behind his ears, inside his ears. You're getting actual shadow. And on top of that, you have a directional light, which is the sun, and then you have the bounce light, which is the sky and the grass and the rest of the light that's in the environment. In the shaded area of his face, there is nothing that's black. There's no dark shadows, because what I think they're doing here is, rather than calculating correct bounce light and how the environment would be lighting the face, they have just a directional light, and they're uniformly just brightening everything up, lifting it from the base to mimic that global illumination, that bounce light. What that means is that there are no actual pure shadows, which there are in real life, especially with all that fur. There's parts where no light is getting there, but just because they're arbitrarily bumping all of the light up in the scene, regardless of shadows, you're ending up with like nooks and crevices that have light when there shouldn't be any light there at all.
I feel like this could be fixed just with some curves adjustments on the actual shot. Like, I wonder if they're trying to match his sort of black levels to the forest behind them, because it's very lifted. It's kind of a faded, flat color profile for the background. But if you look at the shading in her hair, you can actually see some pretty dark values there around her neck, under her arm there. There's definitely some dark black areas there, and none of that is translating to the lion. So it's definitely a little bit of like a compositing or rendering issue there.
You could, but the thing is like, because of that uniformity, if you try to apply some like color grading to fix it, you're going to apply the color grading to the whole thing, and now suddenly, all these areas that don't need the shadow are going to get it too.
You'd have to manually be selecting areas and brightening and darkening them. I'm really feeling a lack of directional ambient light. I feel like it's
Directional ambient light?
Yeah, so
That's an oxymoron.
Everyone's probably familiar with HDRs. You know, you capture a 360-degree image of a place. You can put that around a 3D object and use it for reflections and for lighting. And for example, if you were to go outside, you'd have kind of blue from the sky coming from top down, and you'd have kind of like a gray or, you know, a green if you're on grass coming from the bottom up. So even though it's all ambient light, it has different light values and colors based on what it's coming from, just like we have a green bounce coming from the big green screen beside us here. But in these shots, I'm not feeling that distinct difference between the ambient light. Like, there's a little bit of the sense of like a brightness below the lion's head, but it should be a totally different like light color and light value coming from under the chin versus the side of the chin versus the top of the head or the back of the mane, all in the shadow there. Those should be all different light colors and intensities because the environment around them has a soft blue box from the sky and a bright hot white, you know, reflection from the white rocks in the ground, and like those should all be reflected in how the line's being lit. Not with the bright directional light, but that shadowy ambient light.
Still, the character direction is what's throwing me. So in the third movie, they actually went back and they tried to make him look more realistic.
Welcome, children. You have done well. Very well indeed.
Oh boy, I love this. I love these comparisons. Taking a character and like just making him slightly different in each movie.
Hair technology's gotten better.
It's kind of good. I mean, the animation's great.
They definitely have more variety of the fur and the mane, and the clumpiness and the color, little strands of fur here and there. But he's still got that smooth face.
Yeah, and his like cheeks aren't not as dynamic. He kind of feels like he's just doing mouth shapes, but there's no scrunch happening here like there was in the first one.
Yeah, but also I have a feeling they weren't able to put nearly as much effort into the subsequent Aslans as they did in the first movie, because they spent 2 years on the first Aslan.
This does look way better though. Like the fur detail is pretty nuts. It looks very lush and fuzzy.
The more we look at old visual effects, the more we realize that like a lot of the masters from back in the day really made a point of making sure that they would achieve what would work in the film and work forever in the film. Not always. Not every film had effects that would hold up, but especially in like the good films, they're like, this is going to work, it's going to sell as real, and even if they watch it 20 years from now, 30 years from now, and technology is better, it will still sell and it will still work. And it's cool to see that. Like, I feel like Aslan from the first Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe totally holds up.
Yeah, no, for real. Like, it holds up today, 20 years later.
Yeah.
Like, what the heck? I mean, this was literally the best of the best, putting all of their effort into making the lion as good as they could do. So now a lot more people can make a lion like this with 20 years of advancement in technology and software and skill sets, but it still doesn't get around the fact that when you get talented artists putting a lot of intent and creative choices behind every decision, you get really good results.
Yep.
These React episodes take a little bit of time to edit, but if you want the freshest, hottest takes on what's coming out every week, check out our podcast. We're live streaming it every Wednesday at 11 Pacific. It's on the Corridor Cast channel. Check it out.